Oi, pessoal, estamos aqui com Michael Mattesi dessa vez. Vamos fazer a live agora sobre animação. Ele é autor dos livros The Force. Ele é um renomado animador profissional dessa área. Os livros dele são bastante conhecidos. Você pode adquirir os livros dele no Amazon. Então vamos lá, Gabriel, ajuda.
Hoje a conversa vai ser muito interessante. O Michael ele tem muito conteúdo para passar. Ele desenvolveu uma própria linha de animação, que justamente a gente vai estar trabalhando, falando com ele sobre isso. E justamente está todo mundo muito bem recebido aí realmente para essa nossa live extra aqui no canal, né? Então vamos dar início aqui justamente para poder agradecer também a participação do Michael.
Gabriel, como a audiência dele é estrangeira, é legal você falar também inglês também para a galera traduzir todos os conteúdos.
Okay. So, first of all, welcome, Michael, to our live stream. It's really a pleasure for us to be able to communicate with you. You have such a great story inside the profession, and we really appreciate your work. And it's really an honor for us to be able to communicate with you and pass to our public the kind of content that you propose. How was your graduation process? Did you take any classes, attend any university, or were you self-taught?
First of all, I want to say thank you. Gracias.
Sorry.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I went to an art school. I went to an art school called the School of Visual Arts, which was located in New York City. I was raised in the New York, New Jersey area, so I went to school in New York, and I went to school for comic books.
Awesome.
O Michael ele é formado na Escola de Visual Art, da School of Visual Art New York, graduado em quadrinhos, comics. Isso é surpreendente, eu não sabia que ele tinha esse caminho. E, Gabriel, pergunta um pouco sobre os quadrinhos. You started doing comics?
Yes. That's right.
That is awesome.
So I, the irony is while I was in school, well, let me step back for a second. The reason I went to school for comics was when I was in high school, I took 4 years of architecture and mechanical drawing. And I realized there was too much math involved in architecture. So I decided to go into comic books. I loved comics. And what really made me decide to go into comics was a comic book called The Dark Knight by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. That book made me say, you know what, I want to go into comics. And that led me to the School of Visual Arts. It was one of the few art schools that had comics as a major in the school.
That is awesome. O Michael ele comentou, né, que justamente ele entrou na faculdade com o objetivo de fazer quadrinhos ali, muito pela influência até dos quadrinhos que estavam sendo lançados na época, como o Cavaleiro das Trevas, justamente aí do Frank Miller, do Klaus Johnson. Então realmente foi uma experiência bastante diferente assim nesse sentido, né? It's really interesting to hear that you have this comic background. Because comic books are one of the most important topics inside our visual art school. We have the comic books, classes where the students can learn about the narrative, the graphic elements that compose this medium, and it's really something that draws our interest for most of our lives. So it's really nice to hear that you came also from this kind of feeling about this medium.
Yeah, in fact, I was really lucky. I had I don't know if you guys know who Will Eisner is, but I had Will Eisner as a teacher in my senior year of school.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was very awesome. Yeah, he was so special to the school that he lived in Florida, and the School of Visual Arts, SVA, they would pay to fly him up every second week. So he was up every second week. And I hate to say this, but I had a French comic book artist instructor that worked on the other week. So I had the French teacher, and then Will would come from Florida, and then the French teacher, and then Will would come from Florida. And I did that for a whole year with those two teachers, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot from both of them.
Ele foi aluno do Will, pessoal, ele foi aluno do Will Eisner, né? Ele estudou da Visual Arts em Nova York. E é interessante que o Will Eisner era professor dele, da Visual Art. Só que o Will Eisner morava em outra cidade, então ele tinha que viajar de avião até a Nova York, né? Que é a Visual Art, ele vinha da Flórida, né? E ele tinha 2 professores que moravam em outras cidades. Então, os professores eles vinham de avião para dar essas aulas para eles. Olha que sonho de fazer isso no Rio de Janeiro. Já pensou, Gabriel?
Yeah, this is a kind of structure that we would really like to have here in Brazil.
Yeah.
Most of the professionals that are working over here in Brazil live in other states, so it's really something that is that creates some kind of difficulty when it comes to bring them over here so they can teach our students. So these live streams that we are making are our way to reunite the professionals that live worldwide with the public that is mostly local over here.
Yeah.
But what inspires you artistically?
Oh my God, that's a big one. What inspires me? I think confidence and drama inspire me. You know, I like confidence and drama in anything. It doesn't matter if it's in writing or, sculpture, fine art, drawing, comics, animation. I like seeing art that feels courageous to me, and that courage makes dramatic results. I think that's what inspires me. Architecture, I love architecture with courage, you know.
Ele falou que o que inspira ele é coragem, ele ver coragem e drama nas artes, né? What do you mean? It's inside the art of the artist with the courage. What this means?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends on the subject, but I guess part of it is clarity, that the message they're trying to present is really clear and strong, not scared and timid. And you can see that they have the skill, the artistic skill in their space to convey, or present what their thought is. And it has drama. I like drama. I don't like things that are very subtle or boring. I like when it's clear and strong,
Então, ele gosta de ver drama e emoção, confiança. E essa confiança é através da arte. E eu perguntei o que isso significa, né? Se é o artista ou é essa arte. Ele gosta de ver coragem, drama na arte, entendeu? E, Gabriel, o que você tem a somar sobre isso?
Ele comentou nesse sentido que ele não gosta daquilo que fica no meio termo, ele gosta justamente daquilo que pega e trabalha bem aquela emoção e tudo que está querendo ser transmitido ali, e que realmente, assim, independente necessariamente de um gênero, de uma coisa específica. Ele falou que gosta muito de arquitetura, ele se inspira também com arquitetura, se inspira com animação, com quadrinho, com livro, que ele principalmente observa a capacidade de transmitir a mensagem, né, daquilo que está sendo, do objetivo do objeto que ele está observando.
Então, gente, a gente está aqui ao vivo aqui com o Michael Mattesi, o autor dos livros Force. Agora a gente vai fazer uma pergunta aqui, como ele desenvolveu a linha Force de desenho?
How did you develop your Force way of drawing?
Yeah, so that's a big one. When I went to SVA, I had, I would say there were 3 instructors that really inspired me. The first teacher was an illustrator named Jim McMullen. The second was another illustrator named John Ruggieri, and the third was a teacher named Jack Potter. And those three approaches to drawing helped me get into Disney animation. And then I went to Disney animation and learned how to animate, and Force really was born from my mentors, my process of learning how to animate and trying to put all of that knowledge together into something that I could teach in a step-to-step, step-by-step process.
It's awesome. Ele comentou que o processo dele de trabalho com o Force, né, justamente veio a partir dos estudos dele. Ele teve várias referências também na parte de animação, na parte de ilustração também ali dentro da escola, com alguns professores dele. E foi isso que permitiu até que ele conseguisse justamente chegar até a Disney, né? Justamente era o objetivo, um dos objetivos, né, de qualquer artista acaba sendo muitas vezes alcançar esse tipo de mercado, né? Então realmente assim, ele desenvolveu a partir disso como uma forma de estar produzindo para o mercado, né? How can people interested in creating a career in animation proceed in their start on the business?
Repeat that. How can people
interested in creating a career in animation proceed in their starting on the business?
I missed the second half. How can people try to get into the business by using my style? Is that the question?
Yeah, how can people interested in the animation process begin their career?
Figure drawing. Yeah, I would say figure drawing, and just the skill of learning how to draw, I think, is always the first step, because drawing is, to me, drawing is a language, right? And if you want to learn how to communicate in the world of art in general, you need to understand this first language. It's like learning Portuguese or Spanish or Korean or English. You're trying to learn a language that you're trying to communicate with other people, and drawing is like the base language. So the better you get at that language, the more clearly you can communicate with the people outside of your head, right? With everybody around you.
Então, a pergunta do Gabriel, da gente aqui, foi sobre o que precisa alguém para entrar no mercado de animação, né? A gente pode estender isso para as outras áreas da arte. Ele falou que o desenho é uma linguagem, assim como você aprender um idioma, inglês, português, e o desenho da figura humana é a chave, a primeira coisa que você tem que se desenvolver para você atingir essa confiança, né? E esse drama, né? Que é as duas palavras que ele falou no início dessa pergunta, palavras-chave do trabalho dele.
Yeah, I would say, in fact, the biggest mistake I see happen nowadays is many artists that are not enrolled in a school are learning from, like, let's say YouTube, right? And they're learning out of order. They'll go and learn anatomy, and they'll learn how to paint, digitally, and yet they don't know how to draw, right? So what happens is, like, how do you learn how to draw anatomy if you don't know how to draw? It doesn't really make sense. Students end up doing things backwards, and I see a lot of that when students come to the website. They're confused, and they're like, I just need somebody to tell me what to do and what the right order is. And, again, the right order is you need to learn how to draw. You can't draw anatomy until you know how to draw first. You can't draw like an eye or a mouth. There's lots of videos on the internet. It's like, how to draw the eye. It's like, if you know how to draw, you can draw any eye you want. You don't learn how to draw an eyeball. You have to learn how to draw, right? And then you can draw any eyeball. So it's kind of taught in a backwards manner, and you want to be careful of learning backwards,
Ele falou que a grande dificuldade que ele percebe hoje em dia, a geração atual, né, é que as escolas formais, né, as pessoas estão aprendendo através do YouTube, através de redes sociais, e você perdido na ordem dos estudos. Então, as pessoas olham tutoriais de como desenhar um olho. Só que se você souber a anatomia da estrutura, você vai conseguir desenhar isso. Então, é muita informação e a maioria dos estudantes que procuram ele chegam despreparados, eles querem fazer algo, algo sofisticado, algo interessante, mas falta aquela ordem, aquela didática que uma escola pode oferecer para você dentro de uma organização, né? To save time, Michael, to save time, because when we start to draw, we like to draw the big things, a lot of things, but anatomy, structure, proportion is way more important.
Yeah, the problem with like anatomy, proportion, all that stuff, to me, that's much later. You know, to me, obviously, force is first. You want to be able to look at something and understand how it moves and how it works. You know, the old phrase is form follows function, right? And I believe in that phrase. You know, I think that you should learn the function of something first. And then from understanding the function, then the form appears, right? Then the construction appears. So you could look at a fork, a knife, and a spoon, right? And understand that each one of them are designed to do a particular job. The job came first, then came the structure of the fork, the knife, and the spoon over thousands of years, right? It's not like a spoon was just invented. You know, it's like, I need to pick something up that's a liquid, right? Like, how am I going to do that? You can't do that with a knife. So over time, man has designed something called the spoon. And that's how I look at the human body. You know, it's like, how are they moving? And then understand that that comes from structure, which comes from anatomy and so on. But what is the function of the pose first?
Então, o Michael discorda, a ordem correta, segundo o Michael, seria a força primeiro, o movimento, né? Que a forma, primeiro a forma, depois a função, né? É forma
não.
E função,
Primeira
né?
Função, primeira
função, depois a forma, né?
Isso.
Então, o movimento, a força, a emoção viria primeiro. E eu concordo com essa questão.
How do you, what is your perspective on the moment of the 2D animation nowadays and in the near future?
Before we go into that, I want to add one other thing to the last question, and that is, you know, drawing is the skill that you want to start with, but I think equally important is learning how to think, because thinking is what drives your drawing. You know, and thinking is what's going to drive how creative you are and how skillful you are. So I think along with learning how to draw, I think like how you see the world around you and what you think about the world around you, how well you can understand it, typically through function, I think is like a really huge step, because that'll take you to graphic design, sculpture, directing, whatever it may be. It's you and how you think that's really going to create your artwork.
Então, a primeira coisa que tem que ser feita, né, em vez de estudar o desenho como um todo, é você aprender a pensar. Segundo o Michael, não importa se é escultura, se é animação, porque tudo vem do pensamento, né? Né, Gabriel?
Sim. Ele estava comentando que, no caso, a coisa mais importante é você estimular a pessoa a pensar, né? Porque justamente o artista ele vai representar ações, emoções, a partir da própria perspectiva que ele tem. Então, realmente está trabalhando isso, assim, tipo, dentro da cabeça da pessoa, assim, que quer trabalhar com isso, é muito importante para justamente que a pessoa possa desenvolver uma própria forma também de representar as coisas que está querendo desenhar, né? O desenho é muito importante por conta disso.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm trying to teach the students at drawingforce.com is, you know, my phrase on my website is your drawing is only as good as your ideas. So all of your thinking has to come first. It's not like drawing happens magically or drawings are going to show up on the page magically. You know, it's really about what's going on in your head. How do you perceive the world outside of you? What do you think about the world outside of you? And then having the skill, obviously, to illustrate your thinking.
A primeira coisa que ele passa para os estudantes dele, dentro do site do Força, né? Vamos botar o link aqui, force.com, drawingforce.com. Da primeira coisa que ele passa para os estudantes dele, dentro do método de ensino, é aprender a pensar, né? Porque não adianta você o teu desenho vai ser tão bom quanto as tuas ideias, né? E é um pensamento realmente interessante, porque sendo uma escola de design, né, nós temos que ter ideias primeiro para desenvolver, não é apenas reprodução, não é apenas o método de desenhar mecânico, né?
Observar o mundo realmente ali ao redor, antes de justamente querer simplesmente representá-lo, né? Observar, pensar, absorver ele e conseguir transmitir isso através do seu desenho.
Yeah, I mean, one of the, like students come to me at all different types of skill levels. And one of the things I see is students that come to me through copying, right? So they'll copy other artists' work or even copy reality. And I think that's actually a good step, a good beginning step, is to just be able to look at the truth and try to copy the truth. But you want to go beyond that. You want to understand what creates the truth. You want to understand, function and why something was designed the way it was. You want to understand, the force of it, the perspective of it, the shape design of it, right? And that's all the other things that I try and teach the students. So copying is a good start, but it's like very, very small little first step. It's just like, oh, I can see the truth and I'm trying to just copy the truth.
Ele falou que a maioria dos estudantes, né, de desenho, eles chegam com amostras de cópia, através de cópia. Ele falou que cópia é um ótimo start. É uma ótima maneira de começar, mas é isso aqui perto da verdade. A verdade está por trás do pensamento, está por trás do que vem na sua cabeça, o que você quer passar, o que você quer demonstrar. Então, a reprodução é uma parte desse processo, né? Que é muito mais, a verdade está muito além da cópia.
Sim, muitos artistas, quando chegam para ele justamente nesse trabalho, né, quando querem apresentar um primeiro desenho, quando estão querendo aprender ali a desenhar, muitas vezes eles vêm já com os desenhos, assim, tipo, simplesmente cópias de outras artes, de outras coisas que eles já viram. E, assim, o primeiro contato, muitas vezes, que a pessoa tem, realmente é através da cópia, assim, tipo, você vai vendo as formas que outras pessoas já trabalharam e tudo, você copia isso, né? Mas é importante você conhecer a estrutura, a função daquilo ali realmente. A função, uma coisa que ele está reforçando aqui o tempo inteiro, justamente do quanto que é importante as pessoas terem isso em mente, para você compreender a forma delas, né? Compreender por que elas se apresentam da forma como se apresentam, e aí, a partir disso, você conseguir pegar e montar e apresentar aquilo de forma que funcione dentro do seu próprio estilo, né?
So what are the two languages again? Is it Spanish and Portuguese that you guys are translating in?
Portuguese and Portuguese. Portuguese and English.
We're just trying to transmit everything that you are saying to the audience,
right?
And we are complementing with what we already preach at our school, right?
Right.
So we have a live stream chronogram over here that we present this kind of mentality that you are instructing, this kind of the need for people to understand the reference, but to understand the shape of the reference, not only to copy it, but really understand what its function, why it looks like that, why how it works, and therefore they can work with that and adapt it to their own needs of communicating what they want to transmit.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually what's great about that thinking is, in time, you're not obligated to the reference then anymore. It's inspiration, and you learn how to think on your own, and then you can draw from imagination and go create your own things because you've learned how things work in the real world, and that leads to the imaginative world.
Quando você entende a realidade, você é capaz de desenhar pela sua imaginação. Então você representa melhor o que você quer, o que você está pensando através da sua imaginação, do que apenas você buscando apenas copiar sem procurar entender. Então está sendo um grande prazer estarmos aqui, né, nessa live, vai ficar registrado aqui no YouTube, né? A gente tentou programar essa live num outro horário, quando a gente está fazendo, ele teve um problema de saúde, agora a gente está fazendo essa live e vai ficar registrada aí. Então vamos lá, Gabriel, a próxima pergunta.
So right now, what is your perspective on the moment of 2D animation nowadays and in the near future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I was really excited when Klaus came out, of course, because here was finally a feature film in 2D. I guess there's two opinions here. There's what I would hope happens and what will happen. I hope that 2D will return, you know, and that there'll be a new version of 2D combined with 3D like they did in Klaus. My concern is that companies such as Pixar have taught the world that, or, you know, I should say, films like, or companies like Pixar have taught the financial investors of the world that 3D is where the money is, and I think it's going to be a challenging. I think it's going to be a challenge to convince these financial investors that 2D can make just as much money as 3D can. If we can convince that, then you'll see more 2D animation work, you know?
Yeah. We talked with in Brazil. We have a big studios of 2D animations series, Cartoon Network, and every this animation is just 2D because it's fastest. We use the Toon technology to make it, but to the movies, Klaus is show us how to make to the animation again. Então eu tô falando aqui com ele sobre a animação, a animação 2D, né? Que ele falou sobre Klaus, né? Essa animação que foi para os cinemas, e para ele foi como se fosse o retorno da animação 2D, né? Que a gente ama no cinema novamente, né? E interessante que essa animação 2D foi feita no Toon, né? Você podia até comentar isso para ele, Gabriel.
Do you know if Klaus, the animation was produced using the Toon software?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I'm not certain. You know, where I see 2D animation often now, honestly, is either in television or advertising, right? That's where 2D is surviving right now. But I'm curious to see if it can make a return to, you know, full animated feature film. You know, Klaus, like I said, was one, but look at how long it's been since there's been like a good 2D animated, you know, feature film. You know, I think what killed it was Disney was making movies at the end of the 90s that weren't doing well financially, and at the same time Pixar came in with like Toy Story, right? So
yeah,
it was like a perfect timing of 2D doing poorly and 3D doing really well that made the industry say, hey, this is new technology and look how awesome it is and look how much money it made. We're going to start pushing 3D, you know. It was like the perfect storm, the perfect opportunity for 2D to be doing poorly and 3D to be doing well. If Toy Story had come out when like Beauty and the Beast or Lion King had come out, maybe it would have been a different world we're living in right now. But, you know, Toy Story came out when like Home on the Range and films like that were coming out of Disney and they weren't making any money, right? So that like killed it, you know.
The timing was really something that was particularly differential over there.
Exactly.
O Michael, ele comentou que no caso ele tem esperança de que justamente voltar a ver filmes de animação 2D em larga escala assim sendo produzidos para o cinema, que no caso o que acontece é que ele vê muito o mercado hoje em dia condicionado assim, até por conta de ver o sucesso que a Pixar tem feito com os filmes dela de animação 3D. Justamente ele comentou que acabou convindo, né, no mesmo período ali, os filmes de 2D da Disney estavam em queda, assim, tipo, em termos de crítica, em termos de de rentabilidade junto ao público, com os estouros de popularidade de filmes como Toy Story, da Pixar. Então isso acabou meio que agilizando ainda mais, basicamente, essa transição. Só que, como ele mesmo comentou, tem o filme Klaus, que saiu recentemente, até produzido pela Netflix, e que justamente foi feito em 2D, e que isso alimentou nele a esperança de voltar a ver esse tipo de conteúdo, né? Só que ele mesmo comenta que foi muito tempo, desde o período em que tinha essas animações 2D no cinema, e a produção desse filme Klaus. Então ele não sabe dizer quanto tempo, por exemplo, isso pode levar até surgir o próximo nesse sentido. Mas que ele gostaria muito de ver realmente que o mercado entendesse que, da mesma forma como você consegue fazer muito dinheiro produzindo um filme com qualidade no 3D, você também consegue fazer isso com um filme 2D. É só realmente você ter o conteúdo adequado e preparado justamente para você estar apresentando ali para o seu público.
Hoje em dia, os animadores estão em todo o mundo, né? E no Brasil, nós temos animadores que trabalharam nessa série Klaus. Foi usado um software chamado Tumbum. Nós temos aí a representação desse software aqui. E eles mostraram para a gente as inovações do software, o que pode ser feito em 2D, porque ele é um software de animação 2D, né? E realmente é muito interessante a informação do Michael, né? Vamos para a próxima pergunta, Gabriel?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it's obviously story that matters most in movies, not if it's 3D or if it's 2D. Is the story entertaining and does it move us emotionally? Because look, there's plenty of 3D films that have come out since, let's say, 2000 that were not good either, right? But yet 3D is like taken over the film, the animated film space. But again, it really comes down to good storytelling, which in a way takes us back to comics and, and Will Eisner. It's like how good is the story and how well is it presented?
O mais importante é a história, né? E em comparação à animação 2D e 3D, né? A história é o mais importante. Se é feito em 2D ou 3D, é uma questão estética, né? E é interessante as animações 2D voltarem, porque o 3D é quase como se virou um sinônimo de modernidade, de tempos atuais, de cinema, né? De animação de cinema. Mas, realmente, o Klaus mostrou pra gente que é possível ter ótimas animações 2D no cinema ainda.
Both Eisner and Scott McCloud are such great references for us in regards to communicating a message through a medium, independent, whether it's from comics, whether it's from animation in 2D, from animation in 3D. What's most important is to convey the message and present it in a way that the audience can look at it and comprehend what is going on, and create a connection with the characters.
O Gabriel falou. Desculpa.
Yeah, go ahead.
O Gabriel falou do Will Eisner, né? Relembrando o Will Eisner, né? A história é o mais importante, né?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it brings me back to function. Right, like what's the function of the film, right? Well, typically films are built on themes, right? There's a moral, right? Just like reading a children's book, like there's some idea, there's some lesson, right? Typically. And then how well is the function taken care of? Did the director and the storyboard artist and the cinematographer, these people of skill, have enough skill to present the idea well, right? The function of it well. A great example is like the current 1984 Wonder Woman film, right? Like I think it did an okay job of presenting what its theme is. I just don't agree with the theme, right? The theme to me is confusing because the idea of what you're even functionally trying to convey is challenging, right? It's like, it basically says wishes are not good, right? That you shouldn't wish, and I disagree with that. I think we should all wish, right? And yet it was combining that with the idea of like truth, that truth is good. I agree with that too. Truth is good, but they're almost like two different films, and it's confusing how you're trying to bring these two themes together. you know, I just think at the very core, the function of the movie was already broken, right? It's like, you know, what's the idea that I'm trying to represent? You know, like, here's the nugget. We're trying to talk about wishes are bad and yet truth is good. And what do those two things have to do with one another? So you've got the idea, the theme of the film, and then did they functionally present it? Yeah, they did okay idea of presenting it, but already there was a problem at the main idea, you know, and in the end, I think it made a very confusing film. You know, if you take a Disney film or a Pixar film, typically that theme is much clearer, you know, it's much simpler, and you really do understand it through the presentation of all the artists and the director and using their skill to finally show that to you, you know.
We have a commentary here by Julio Carvalho. He said that 2D animation frame by frame is being used a lot in motion design. This brought a broader appreciation for this area, 2D animation and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I have quite a few students right now that I mentor that are motion designer animators, and they want to learn a little bit more about drawing skill and 2D animation so they can bring that into their workflow. So they're not just moving graphics around. They want to learn how to draw better because it'll add to their value, right? They'll get more clients and probably bigger budgets if they can expand their drawing skill and their thinking skill right along with that to influence and be in addition to just purely the motion graphics or even infographics, right? Like visual moving infographics, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that is a pretty big move right now. I'm seeing quite a bit of that myself.
Yeah.
Algo interessante que eu estou achando por esse intercâmbio aqui é uma coisa de desconstrução, porque numa faculdade de design a gente aprende forma e função. Na verdade, aqui no desenho, na arte, a função primeiro e depois a forma é um pensamento muito interessante. Você ter a ideia primeiro e depois você gerar o resultado. Isso aí é uma desconstrução, que é uma informação aqui, que é uma chave aqui desse bate-papo aqui. Gabriel, faz uma tradução do que ele falou ainda há pouco sobre a...
Ele comentou agora há pouco sobre o filme da Mulher Maravilha mais recente, né, o Mulher Maravilha 1984, que justamente o grande problema que ele vê, por exemplo, no filme é que o filme ele teve mensagens que não foram tão facilmente transmitidas, né, que tiveram dificuldade ali na hora de identificar, por exemplo, qual era a moral da história, o que realmente estava querendo se transmitir através do que estava se passando ali. Que uma das mensagens que o filme tem é que, tipo, os desejos são uma coisa ruim, que é uma coisa que com a qual ele não concorda. E nós também, assim, tipo, você tem que desejar as coisas. O primeiro passo de qualquer jornada é justamente você querer fazer algo. Então é importante você ter esse desejo. Mas no caso, o filme ele trabalhou isso, ao mesmo tempo em que quis valorizar a verdade. E isso no caso, é uma coisa que ele concorda. No sentido de que, tipo, realmente, a gente tem que encarar a realidade como ela é e tudo, não adianta também ficar só querendo fantasiar, encarar as coisas assim, só pelo lado que mais nos agrada, mas ficou muito confuso realmente pela forma como isso foi apresentado no filme, que realmente faltou profissionais ali, no caso, que conseguissem convir melhor o que estava querendo ser transmitido através da produção inteira do filme. Não só simplesmente colocar as cenas a esmo.
E ele falou também que na Pixar, nas animações, isso é mais bem pensado. As histórias são mais simples e o roteiro ele é feito de uma maneira mais inteligente. Porque esse pensamento vem só da forma, né? Que é um filme de super-herói, né? A gente vai muito pela forma, pela beleza, pelo impacto visual, mas a ideia por trás disso acaba sendo mais importante no final das contas, né?
Mm-hmm. It's the danger of the blockbuster movies, right?
Mm-hmm. It's the danger of any movie, I think.
Yeah.
It's the danger of any story. It's the danger of any drawing, any piece of art, any sculpture, painting, you know, it's that clarity piece, which takes us back to the beginning of our conversation today. What I admire is art that is really dramatic and confident and clear in what it's trying to say, because I know as an artist, that's actually very difficult.
Yeah, it's very
yeah, it's difficult. So I really respect that, you know, when I see that in someone else's work.
Ele comentou que justamente o problema não é do blockbuster especificamente, mas no caso realmente de qualquer coisa, inclusive do desenho até normal mesmo, porque isso acaba remetendo ao que ele falou no comecinho da nossa conversa, de que ele aprecia muito aquela arte que consegue transmitir o que quer transmitir, sabe? Tipo, aquela arte que é verdadeira com aquilo que está querendo ser passado ali, justamente com o drama, com a emoção e tudo.
E clareza, né? Principalmente.
Clareza, justamente, no seu objetivo. Que é uma coisa que é difícil. É uma coisa que é difícil, realmente. Ele até frisou que, tipo, é difícil para o artista quando você quer colocar isso. Então, quando você vê uma arte que consegue transmitir o que o artista queria, isso é o que tem mais, assim, tipo, realmente apreço.
Vamos lá, Gabriel.
How is the work done inside some of the companies that are worldwide references to the animation industry where you worked at?
You know, first of all, I have to say, to be clear here, a vast majority of my work experience actually ended up shifting from animation to video games. I've been in video games in and out for 20, 25 years as an art director.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've spent most of my career there. My career started in animation, but honestly, most of my career has been in games as an art director. And, you know, in games, at least, most of the animation was done in Maya, right? I would say that's probably the main software program. But, you know, I still have very close friends that work at Pixar and at Disney. And, you know, there's a lot of proprietary software, you know, and these higher end companies, they may start with some foundation software like a Maya or 3D Max or something, but there's so much new technology that's created in companies like that it becomes like their own software, you know. Even, you know, DreamWorks, I was I guess a consultant at DreamWorks on Megamind for some time. Teaching the animators Force, and you know, like I said, there was a mixture of different tools that they were using at studios like that.
Ele falou que, para deixar claro, que ele atualmente trabalha como diretor de arte e jogos, né? Ele começou com animação, ele trabalhou no desenho Megamind, fazendo treinamento da equipe, trabalhando o movimento das figuras do Megamind. E ele falou que, como é feito, os jogos são feitos, as animações são feitas no Maya, né? E empresas como o Pixar, outras empresas maiores, têm o próprio software, tem os próprios softwares 3D que desenvolvem essa tecnologia.
We love Megamind over here. So actually, some of the 2D animations that you said from the mid 90s, late 90s from Disney, such as Emperor's New Groove, the Atlantis, over here they are really popular, even though they, at least in my opinion, they attract less public approval than they deserve. I believe they deserve way more recognition from the media than they actually do. But even so, they are very much appreciated here in Brazil.
Yeah, I like those films too. I mean, I graduated school in '92, and then I got into Disney Animation in '93. So I was there during Lion King. So I worked on Lion King for about a year and a half. And I think those films, you know, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King really allowed the company to grow, right? Because they had like billion-dollar hit after billion-dollar hit after billion-dollar hit. And then suddenly they started making this second wave of films from 95 to 2000. Like you just mentioned, you know, you had Emperor's New Groove, you had Treasure Planet, Atlantis. I think what happened there was, in the US, those films weren't as effective because, first of all, they kind of skewed more boy than girl, just the demographic. And the stories, I'm going to explain this. It's almost like the Wonder Woman problem. Like the stories weren't necessarily as clear. Like they were good films. They were good action movies. I happen to like them, and I love the style of all those films we just talked about. But I think Disney movies are most successful, financially and globally when, again, that theme, that nugget of the story is some kind of deep-rooted, emotional idea. Like when I think of Atlantis, I'm like, wow, what is it really about? Like on the surface, it's about a guy going on this adventure, and I guess it's about him going after what he believes in. But even me saying that, I feel like I'm reaching to try and say that's what the movie's about. With the other films, it seems simpler. Like if I think of Lion King, it's really about believing in yourself, right? Like no matter what anybody says around you, including family, right? His own uncle is like telling him who he is and lying to him. I think in the end, it's like, you have to become who you're supposed to be, right? You have to believe in yourself. And the theme of the film is to become who you're supposed to be in this world. It's almost the same thing as Lord of the Rings, right? And you have Aragorn, and you have that scene where he's being given the sword. He's like, become the person that you're supposed to be, right? And that's such a powerful theme. Does something like Atlantis have that in there? Maybe those films have it, but they're not clear enough, right? They're not bold enough and strong enough to punch that through. Yet, do I think they're fun movies? Yeah, and I like the style. I happen to love Mike Mignola, and Mignola was the inspiration for Atlantis, So, there's great stuff in there, but I think fairly enough, they don't become globally great because there's something in there that's missing. Like Home on the Range, I don't know what Home on the Range is about. It's about, it's the West and some chickens that talk and a bad guy. Like I barely even remember the film. It didn't change me in any way. It didn't affect me. I think of Saving Private Ryan, which I just watched the first 5 minutes of a few days ago, and first 5 minutes and you're like crying your eyes out. Because it's so emotional, and the theme is so powerful there about there are more important things than myself that I have to do, that I have to go after, and Tom Hanks's character is leading a group of guys to try and save one soldier, right? And there's these constant moral battles in the film with him and the guys in his troop about, is this worth it? Is this guy more worth is his life worth more than my own life? And those are great questions, and they're put there right in the film, and it's to recognize I'm willing to sacrifice my life for some things that are more important than me, and the humility of that is such a strong idea, and in animation, it's tricky. I think, Pixar tries to do a great job of, especially of late, their films are more mature. They're very mature films, they're talking about death and soul, and what it means to be dead and alive and what that's supposed to mean. And then they had In and Out, which was all about human psychology. They keep trying to take these children's films like further and further and make them almost more and more mature. And I don't even know if that's a good idea or not. It's tricky. It doesn't mean you can't teach something emotional without having it be that mature. Prior films have done that. Fables, Grimm's fairy tales, all these stories from the past have done it. So it's kind of an interesting question. The same with Leica. I think Leica is tricky too, because I love stop motion, but I think with the Leica films, I feel like I'm just watching a story. I don't feel like there's something underneath it that makes me really, really care about seeing how it happens. And it's so frustrating to me because I love Leica and I love the artistry. It's like it's got all the skill and all the power, but when I watch the movies, I don't typically leave those movies going, wow, that really changed me. I learned something. And I think that's the challenge that company has. I think artistically, they're amazing studio. But I don't typically feel changed when I see those films. I can't point at one film and go, this is what I learned. And like one of my daughters loved Coraline. I've seen Coraline hundreds of times. But when I think about Coraline, I'm like, what did I learn at it? I guess in that film, it's supposed to be about, don't take for granted what you have, love your family. She tries to go beyond that. But even there, I feel like I'm reaching. Like maybe there's a theme there, but I don't really feel it. I don't feel how much she really cares, I guess, about her family versus her going on adventures and such, I think that's hard. I'm not saying, you know, I get it. It's difficult. I've been in film, I've been in video, even in video games, the same thing. It's like you're still trying to create a specific experience. You want the player to feel something when they're playing. It's very hard. You know, it's hard to take all your skill and somehow turn it into something abstract, you know, and make it work and feel the way you want it to. Very, very tricky. Entertainment industry, very challenging job. So when it's done well and successfully, it's amazing. You know, it's like, wow, I really got that. And that's because there's hundreds of people that know exactly what they're doing. They're like the best of the best working on that movie, you know, to make that happen. It's not an accident. It's all extremely planned, you know, extremely thought out. Yeah, so it's a lot of work. You know?
Yeah, it's the emotional connection that really perceives the storyline of the movie, right? But games like Stanley Parable, the Layers of Fear, some of them really touch me in regards of the story, of the message beneath the surface, right? So it's really something that, as you said, it's difficult to achieve, but when done right, when it works accordingly, it's really something that leaves an impact on the player.
Vamos lá, Gabriel.
Então, o que ele passou aqui foi o seguinte: ele comentou da diferença do Atlantis, por exemplo, do Atlantis em busca do planeta do tesouro, o Nova Imperador e outros filmes, o Coraline, com relação à diferença que teve para o Rei Leão e aquelas outros grandes clássicos da Disney, é que assim, ele não vê tanto assim, tipo, ele gosta muito dessas animações também, ele identifica até muita qualidade artística nelas, só que assim, ele sente falta de uma mensagem principal, que você não consegue assim definir de forma tão clara. Por exemplo, mesmo o Atlantis, que é um filme que é bom, foi inspirado até muito pelo trabalho do Mignola, que é um artista que a gente já conhece, muita gente aqui no Brasil conhece bastante, da parte de quadrinhos, e as pessoas talvez não consigam identificar especificamente qual era o objetivo principal do filme do Atlantis, qual era a mensagem que ele queria passar. Então, assim, enquanto que o Rei Leão, por exemplo, você tem uma mensagem clara. Você tem que assumir aquela posição, que é aceitar quem você é e realmente seguir em frente com a sua vida, sabe? Tipo, então a Pixar, ela trabalhou isso muito bem nos filmes dela, ela constrói até temas de mais profundidade, assim, de mais complexidade psicológica, como a questão da morte, com o filme mais recente do Soul, ou então justamente o Divertidamente, né, que trabalha questões psicológicas ali dentro da cabeça das pessoas. E então, assim, tipo, isso pode ser trabalhado de forma eficiente ali dentro de uma narrativa, independente de qual narrativa seja. Pode ser para games, pode ser para cinema, pode ser para um seriado de televisão, mas assim, tudo isso exige muito trabalho. Quando isso funciona, não é um acidente, isso aí realmente é uma soma de todos os trabalhos que foram feitos nesse processo.
Ele falou que os melhores dos melhores trabalham nessas animações e não é um acidente o sucesso dessas animações, mas algo que faz realmente a animação ter um sucesso mundial, no caso do Rei Leão, é a mensagem, né? O Rei Leão é sobre você superar, né? A superação, você ser quem você quer ser, e independente da família fala contra, é uma mensagem muito forte, muito poderosa. E outros filmes, você não tem uma mensagem clara. O que ele está querendo me ensinar ali? O que ele está me passando esse filme? E outra coisa, a diferença da Pixar e da Disney. A tendência, um dos truques de você atingir a emoção das pessoas é aumentar a faixa etária do público e tocar em temas muito que tocam muito as pessoas. Mas isso também era feito no passado com mensagens mais amenas para público mais jovens. E dá para você fazer isso independente do público. Você dá uma boa mensagem e realmente fazer as pessoas se emocionarem com a tua arte, né?
Michael, how do you organize your work journey? You work from time to time. You have an agenda that you set up to from this moment of the morning until this moment of the afternoon. I'm going to sit down and draw, and after it I can resolve any other situation. Or do you make it kind of simultaneously. How do you proceed in your organization of time?
Yeah, that's a great question for artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything I do is on a calendar, on my Google Calendar. Yeah, everything. I most of my time right now is teaching. I have many students that I teach every week, from mentorship sessions to the premium members, which are students that submit work and they get like a video recording from me. But almost every minute of every day is on my calendar, you know, all the way from going to a dentist appointment to I have these 6 mentorship sessions today to here's my lunch break. And, you know, at night is when it kind of frees up. So 4 or 5 days a week, I teach from 5 to 8 o'clock at night. I'll have dinner at 8 o'clock, usually in the evening. And then from 8 or 9 o'clock till like 11 or 12 o'clock is kind of time for me. Either I have to finish up some work that I couldn't complete during the day, or I just watch TV, or I try to draw for myself. I'm in the middle of a move right now with a new house. I've been living in California since 2003. I'm moving up to Washington State in a couple of months on a house that's being built. So all my free time after teaching is house. You know, it's like, what is the bathroom going to look like? What kind of tiles going in there? What's the floor material going to be, right? So it's all of that right now. But my day from 8, 9 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, so about 12 hours, is on the calendar. It's only a couple hours a day that I kind of have time for me to just do whatever I want to do. But otherwise, it's all scheduled. Otherwise, it'd be impossible for me to function, you know. And I try to tell the students I teach that I mentor the same thing. Not like your schedule has to be as intense as mine, but I think it's good to say, hey, every morning I'm going to draw from 9 to 11 o'clock, for instance. You know, it's great to have a calendar and make yourself valuable enough to listen to your own rules. You know, I think if you're not working at a full-time job and you're on your own, or you're in school, you're your own producer, right? You have to control your own schedule, and it's really important to have a schedule in place and commit to it. And it's okay if it changes, you know, if you need to move things, move them, but at least you know you've started somewhere and you've made some kind of commitment to yourself and to your time.
Ele falou que para a organização dele ele usa o Google Calendário. Atualmente ele tem se dedicado mais a mentorias, né? Ele é autor da coleção de livros Force. Ele oferece mentoria para vários estudantes do mundo todo. Inclusive, se você quer ter uma mentoria com ele, entra no site dele. E ele usa o Google Calendário. Ele trabalha durante o dia, tem um tempo para descanso, e tudo que ele faz está agendado no Google Calendário. How do you exercise your creativity? You have ideas for scripts, comics, animation, games. Do you have your own ideas to create your own things?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm not, how do I put this? Right now, first of all, I'm on 3 book projects, right? So I have my full-time job of teaching, and then I'm trying to get 3 books done in the next year and a half, 2 years. And fortunately, I have 2 other Force instructors, Swenley and Rotunje, that work with me. So they're going to be collaborating with me on these books. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to finish them. I'm not working a lot on creative things like TV shows and such. I have 6 or 7 cartoon ideas that I was pitching around Los Angeles in the 2005, 2004. I was pitching a lot. And I do have a live action film script that I've written with a partner of mine. I'm hoping in the next couple of years that if I can free up more of my time, I would love to create a storyboarded animatic of that live action film, and then try to pitch that to Hollywood, you know, and see if I can get somebody to pick it up and get some interest in it. For me, the struggle is time. As much as I control my time, it is packed, you know, and what I'm not good at and I'm trying to get better at is making time for myself to be creative and to have time to draw. I mean, even my Instagram account, the last 2 weeks, I haven't posted anything new there because I've been busy with the house. So now I've got, you know, my job, the house, the books, and that's like more than enough to fill like my entire life. So I don't think anything new is really going to happen until at least the middle of summer or beginning of fall, you know, and that's even when, with the books, I probably won't even really be able to focus on the books until August or September, just because of my calendar, you know.
Eu perguntei para ele se ele tem algum projeto, ele tem projetos autorais, se ele escreve histórias. Ele falou que no momento ele tá trabalhando em 2 livros novos, né, da série Force. E isso toma muito tempo, apesar dele ter outros instrutores ajudando ele na mentoria que ele oferece através do livro. Isso toma bastante tempo. E ele tem roteiros para cinema, projetos que ele está querendo, que ele pretende oferecer em Los Angeles para animações, mas a dificuldade mesmo é manejar o tempo, organizar o tempo, né, Gabriel? Eu falei bem o que ele falou?
Não, sim, ele comentou que no caso ele está muito abarrotado, até porque ele está de mudança, ele mora desde 2003, ele mora lá na Califórnia, e está se mudando para o estado de Washington, né? É uma mudança bem grande, para uma casa nova que ainda está sendo construída, então o tempo todo livre que ele tem, ele está meio que dedicando nesse sentido, assim, realmente para poder estar planejando, né? Uma coisa que eu achei muito importante que ele comentou foi o seguinte, de quando você estabelece, às vezes, essa agenda para você aprende também que você tem que se respeitar, você tem que, assim, tipo, você determinou que você ia fazer as coisas de determinada forma, e, assim, tipo, alguma pessoa, alguma coisa acaba querendo te exigir mais do que aquilo que você tinha oferecido, e você tem que saber exatamente, assim, tipo, se respeitar, no sentido de compreender aquilo que você pode realmente assumir de responsabilidade ali, para poder estar lidando, né? Isso é uma forma justamente de você acabar conseguindo apresentar a qualidade que você quer, o que você está produzindo, sem justamente você acabar se prejudicando nesse sentido, né? We have a last question over here from Julio. He said, when an animation has a lot of visual appeal, can it interfere with the understanding of the message of the story?
Yeah, I think it could do either thing. It could interfere or it can support it, right? In a best case scenario, it's so visually appealing and stunning, but there has to be a reason that it's so stunning, right? Like the visual should match the emotional context of the story. For instance, if you had a movie that was about depression and yet it's visually beautiful and beautiful in a way that's uplifting, right, and colorful, then that doesn't make any sense. It could be visually stunning and still depressing, right? And that's what it should be doing, right? It should support the story. A great example of this was Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, right? Came out in like the mid 2000s. I lived in Los Angeles, I remember at the time, and I happened to be taking acting classes at that time. And it's when I really learned, wow, art isn't the most important thing, right? Like writing is the most important thing in films, right? Because you have to tell this story. And then the actor's job is to convey those emotions, right? And convey that story. And then comes the art, right? Like how are they dressed? What's the character design, environments, and so on. And this film Sky Captain came out and it's visually awesome and yet it's terrible. Just such a terrible film. You know, like the story, and there's some good actors. Jude Law's in that. I love Jude Law. And yet, you know, the film doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't do anything, yet visually it's amazing, right? So I remember watching that film and thinking, wow, here it is. Like, this is what I'm learning in acting class. It's like the story's really not that good. The writing's not that great. It doesn't matter how good the actors are. If the story's not that great, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter how good the art is. Like, who cares? You know, I might as well just go to the museum and look at some paintings on the wall then instead of this movie. It doesn't make a difference. So I think it can interfere, but it also can be amazing if it connects, you know, if the visuals connect with what the emotional intent is of the movie.
Awesome. Ele comentou no caso aqui que justamente realmente quando a animação tem muito apelo visual, a questão é que tipo de apelo, né? Você tem um apelo que pode acrescentar realmente ali a história, que tem que ser uma coisa que tipo convenha o tom da história, né? Ele comentou aí justamente que tipo, você pode às vezes encontrar um filme que trate sobre depressão, mas no caso se a arte for tipo tão linda, tão bacana, tão interessante, que acabe sendo na verdade até inspirador, aí tipo, você fica, mas isso não era a mensagem inicial que se queria transmitir. Então, tem que ser assim, tipo, você pode ter obras com a arte muito boa, mas que se a arte justamente não tem nada a ver, às vezes, com a mensagem que está querendo ser transmitida, acaba se perdendo o propósito. Então, realmente, assim, tipo, você pode acrescentar, você pode trabalhar o apelo visual de forma que justamente reforce a mensagem que você está passando. Quando você faz isso de forma bem feita, isso daí realmente traz muito mais qualidade ao filme, né? Ele citou o exemplo aí do Capitão Sky, né? Justamente é um filme que teve em 2000 e pouquinho, aí, ele falou que foi em 2003, quando ele estava fazendo até aulas de atuação. É um filme que, tipo, tem muito trabalho de edição ali. Eu me lembro desse filme. É um filme que mistura alguns elementos de preto e branco com alguns elementos, tipo o Sin City, assim, que bota um ou outro elemento colorido e tudo. Mas, assim, a história não tinha substância, não tinha o suficiente, por exemplo, para prender o público. Então, não importa se os atores foram bons, se, tipo, um dos atores do filme é o Jude Law, que ele gosta bastante, sabe? Mas, assim, tipo, a qualidade da produção e tudo não consegue corrigir o fato de que, por exemplo, não existe uma história que mova, que carregue o filme, entendeu? Então, nesse sentido, você tem que... A coisa mais importante é você identificar a história, você ter o roteiro, você ter ali o que vai ser transmitido. E a partir daquilo ali é que você vai desenvolver a parte visual e tudo, e tem que ser tudo de acordo com qual é o objetivo realmente da história. Não dá para ser... pode falar.
A parte visual é de extrema importância, é muito importante a parte visual. Então, você está ajudando a passar essa ideia, esse conceito, né? Então, quando você for pensar em criar suas obras, seu quadrinho, seu game, seu jogo, vamos pensar primeiro na ideia e vamos fazer com que a arte corresponda a isso, faça essa mensagem. Né?
Yeah. Recently, I saw a Joe Kubert quote where he said that if someone wants to work with comics just to create beautiful pages, really beautiful art, but regardless of the ability of the page to transmit the narrative of the story, the person was in the wrong field of area. Because comic books and animation and most of the visual arts media work with the idea that what is most important is to transmit something, is to allow the audience to see and to understand what is going to be passed in the story, what the characters are going to go through, what their journeys are about, and really something that is going to enrich them emotionally, personally. So it was a quote that really resonated with me, and that I believe it's always very important to transmit it to everyone that wants to work in this kind of jobs in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
O Gabriel falou uma frase do Joe Kubert sobre se você desenha quadrinhos querendo desenhar coisas bonitas, você está na hora errada, você está na área errada. Seu trabalho é contar uma história e passar emoções, né? Isso também tem a ver com toda a conversa que aconteceu aqui, né? Desse bate-papo, né? Primeiro, você tem que ter as ideias e tentar passar suas ideias da melhor forma. Não é apenas desenhar, não é apenas reproduzir.
Anderson is thanking for the opportunity to have this amazing encounter with you, and really, and we all really appreciate the time that you dedicated to us. We know that, as you said before, your time is very limited, so we don't want to really take you for much longer. So just we'd really like just to reinforce how how grateful we are that you spent this time with us, that you managed to find the time in your agenda to speak and to transmit what your journey and the perspective on this subject was with us.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. It's great talking to both of you and getting to hear my ideas translated.
Sorry for we can't do simultaneously. It would be much more effective, but over here we have to translate it every time so that the audience can understand both in English and in Portuguese. But thank you very much for your patience. Sorry for any inconvenience, and we will be looking forward to your future projects. And anything that you would like to know about over here in Brazil, the culture or anything, feel free to talk to us and to let us know if there is anything we can help you with. Okay?
I will. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It was a great pleasure to have you here, because your books are so amazing and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day, and God bless over there, all your family, and your moving.
Yes.
I hope everything goes according to your planning. And
I hope so.
Let's talk again in the future.
Yeah, please come reach out to me whenever you want to talk again.
Anderson, você fez uma pergunta aqui. Essa pergunta foi respondida no início da live. Dá uma olhada na live, ele vai falar. Ele falou figure drawing.
A gravação continua disponível no nosso canal aqui, vai estar o vídeo inteiro, e essa pergunta foi comentada ali, é uma pergunta que a gente achou realmente importante de estar fazendo para ele, e o Michael realmente trouxe bastante conteúdo interessante nesse sentido. Muito obrigado aí para todo mundo que esteve presente nessa nossa live extra aqui no canal, né? E acompanha aí que hoje mais tarde a gente já vai ter a live de aula aberta com o Fernando Cruz.
Gabriel, você não perguntou para ele se ele tem projetos para falar e tal?
Não falei, ele falou dos livros, lembra?
Ele falou, beleza.
Mas muito obrigado, gente. Obrigado mesmo pela participação de todo mundo. E a gente se vê aí mais tarde. Thank you once again, Michael, and God bless you.